Something that I've been playing around with, and I'm sure we'll go into it more in the workshop this weekend, is the concept of forgiveness. So, as these things play out in your imagination, or at least in mine, I was having a conversation with somebody, and so what I've realized is a lot of the conversations that happen in my head, I'm having with, let's say, different friends, but each friend represents an aspect of myself that I project onto them. And it was a conversation where I almost found myself playing the antagonist. And I asked the other person, and I asked the other person, and it was about self-righteousness. I asked the other person, when was the last time you forgave someone? And I realized that I was asking myself that question. When was the last time you forgave someone? And it was this really weird situation because it's like there are these two concepts melding together where one, the person that I'm talking to is not actually them, they never existed, they're the aspect of me. And two, um, it's hard to think of the last time I forgave someone because I'm what I'm seeing more and more is you're not actually forgiving anyone, you're forgiving yourself. And I just, I was wondering if you could elaborate on this whole concept of forgiveness, like what it is, what it looks like. Because I was struggling to think of in that moment, one, something that needs forgiving, and two, what self-forgiveness means or looks like.
Yes, beautiful. You're noticing conversations in your imagination and being an antagonist, asking questions of another, poking and prodding and challenging them, maybe even with some slight condescension, right? Yes, yes, and then all of a sudden you realize that your voice is a voice for you, for your ear also. And this is a very powerful pivot in your understanding of your perceptual reality, is to tune the ear finely, finally and finally to the voice that is challenging but not condescending, that is encouraging and compassionate. So adjust the tenor of the voice a little bit. Huh? Okay? Challenging but loving and compassionate. Really, the voice of a loving, nurturing parent, mother. A loving, nurturing mother, loving, supportive father. This voice. And you see your friend is none but yourself. Huh? The imagination has created a play for self-reflection that you may see where you're looking from, what you're looking as, who you think you are, who you feel yourself to be. Huh? In order that you come back to who you are. Withdrawn from who you think you are and come back from who you feel to be to who you are, what you are. And that now the whole world is a play to guide you home to your own self. What a beautiful thing. What was once the suffering of the world now becomes the great compassion of the return. And even what you once had called enemy, now you see as your sacred friend. We come at this through forgiveness, of course. It's not easy. It doesn't feel natural, of course, but it is actually the most natural of things. And so we hold ourselves in compassion with our difficulty in perceiving the world in this sacred way and interacting and engaging with it in this sacred way. This imagination, especially when it's reflective in negativity, it's a bit of a neurosis, maybe a mild kind of neurosis, recursive self-reflection. And where there's negativity, of course, it makes it, unpleasant for us. And, for others. Yes. There was this wonderful, I remember some years ago listening to Eckhart Tolle, and he said he came across probably a homeless schizophrenic on the streets of Vancouver who was talking to himself. And he thought, Eckhart Tolle thought to himself, well, this man is no different than all of us. He's just saying it out loud. And so in the posture and attitude of humility and forgiveness, then you will. It is a certainty, and it is my promise that with a dedication to a practice of forgiveness, you will overcome the negativity by which you suffer. To put down the toxic elixir of resentment. How do they say? To stop drinking poison, expecting the other to suffer. This is what resentment is tantamount to, is our own suffering. And forgiveness is the way out. But there's something I want you to explore now in this moment, which is in these conversations that happen in your imagination where the other isn't with you, is also happening when the other is with you. It never is just as it is. There's always an overlay, a superimposition of your interpretation of what is, isn't it? And so your imagination is active in this very moment. Yes. In every moment. Mind always has something to say, always putting things in categorical boxes, yes? Evaluating, discerning, until we have learned really to lean into forgiveness, mostly just judging, and suffering so much our own judgments, suffering so much our judgments of others, wishing they would be different, and not recognizing that this judgment is simply self-judgment. And what you say is true. There is no forgiveness other than self-forgiveness. And there is no judgment other than self-judgment. This is very good news, isn't it? You see why now, don't you? Because if judgment is that by which I suffer, if I suffer from my own judgment and not from the other, well, now there's something I can do about it. Because if I'm suffering because of the world, and not simply my interpretation of it, well then, this is a problem that will be very difficult and time-consuming to surmount. So, when you come to even just the possibility of this understanding, it is a paradigm shift for you. The whole thing is reframed. And that every last happening is sacred, is bespoke, custom designed for your awakening. Maybe in a way we could say, God loves you so much, He created a world for you to come back to yourself. Forgiveness is so difficult for us, you know. But I'll tell you what's more difficult than forgiveness. By orders of magnitude, what is more difficult than forgiveness is not forgiveness. Because we know how difficult this is.